Our usual Tribal Conservation Advisory Council meeting that we typically have. The purpose of this event is to share activities that NRCS and other entities are involved with assisting with our tribal partners, and to ask our tribal partners to share what they're involved with and see how we can partner together and collaborate on projects. With that, you see the agenda was attached to the email Outlook invite, and it was also mailed out. A draft agenda was mailed out earlier. If you have any items to add to the agenda, please just let us know. We can take them now or at the end of the meeting. As always, please don't be afraid to ask questions. Come off mic, come put your camera on, or place them in the chat. We'll watch for those chat questions. If we don't see your questions in the chat, be sure to let us know by coming off mic. Sometimes we might not see them. So please, we ask this to be a discussion. So with that, I just ask if there are any additions to the agenda or any specific questions that we want to make sure we discuss today that you want to bring up now. Don't be afraid to let us know later on today through this meeting, or even with after the meeting by emailing one of us that you see here, either Kathy Irving or myself, Daryl DeVell. I am State Tribal Liaison Coordinator with NRCS at the Huron State Office. And with that, I will let Tony welcome us further.
All right, thank you, Daryl. So for those who don't know me, I am Tony Sinceri. I'm the state conservationist for NRCS based out of Huron. First, I just want to welcome everybody to the meeting today. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come and spend a little time with us. We do have some updates to share and a good presentation today also. We are nearing the end of our fiscal year right now. We have about 6 weeks left until the end of September. And we're working on trying to wrap up our budgets. And that's been a major focus of ours just recently is trying to wrap up the budgets. This year, we spent close across the state of South Dakota, we spent close to $20 million in CSP and right about the same for our environmental quality incentive program. We did just get a little bit of extra funding here right at the last part of the year, and we have several of our field offices across the state focusing on trying to get contracts obligated so we can continue to get conservation on the ground across the state. Recently, there was an act that was just passed just within this last week called the Inflation Reduction Act, and there is quite a bit of funding that's tied up into that act that's going to potentially come to NRCS. And right now we're looking at how we can best utilize that funding across the state. We will be going out to partners across the state trying to find ways that we can best utilize that funding. And I want to take that and go into our conservation implementation strategy. So several of you may have heard of CIS, or the Conservation Implementation Strategy, and what that is. The idea behind that is finding projects across the state, utilizing partners to find projects across the state that NRCS should be investing funding into. We still have to work within our program requirements. We still have to use our practices such as fence, pipeline, tank, pump, any of those type of practices. So we still have to maintain the same practices, but we're looking for kind of specific project areas or specific resource concerns that need to be addressed at a higher level of priority. And we really are looking at our partners and producers across the state to help lead that process and help let us know where we should be focusing some of our efforts. And as there's more money that comes into South Dakota, I'm going to be looking to our partners even more, trying to find ways to utilize this funding. NRCS is really built around a locally led conservation process, and this is the foundation of that. It's finding partners to help lead NRCS to be focusing on addressing resource concerns. So just also within the last week, we also had several partners who ended up getting awarded a Regional Conservation Partnership Program, or RCPP award. This this again is another locally led opportunity for partners, and I'm really happy to say that we did get a couple of our partners awards over this last week. These are nominations that a partner will put together a proposal and send to the national office. National office will review and make selections, and then it comes back to the partner. So really proud of our partners that got selected for those RCPP awards. There is an opportunity right now also through our Grazing Lands Conservation Initiative, or GLCI. Nationally, a notice of funding just went out. There is $12 million available nationwide for promoting education in grasslands. This is a big priority for South Dakota, and I'm really encouraging folks that would be interested in getting more information about grazing lands or that GLCI opportunity. I think they're offering between $700,000 and $1 million awards for different groups that are looking for those opportunities to promote grasslands across the state. So the next item I do just want to touch on here is where we are currently with COVID. So we've had a lot of changes over these last few weeks and months regarding COVID. And even just as recent as yesterday and today, there was new information that came out that as of Monday, the 22nd, NRCS will no longer have office staffing reduction. So unless there is an extreme case that pops up, we're not going to be reducing our staffing levels at offices. So over the last month or so, or a couple of months, we've been getting a report each Friday that will tell us at what level, 50% or 25%, that we're going to be allowed to staff our offices at. So as of Monday, this coming Monday, we won't be getting the staffing level restriction any longer. There still may be masking requirements in certain offices, and we'll get those updates every week. And I know sometimes that can be frustrating if you're told next week you have to wear a mask in an office, but that's just what the policy is at this time. So we're hoping that we're continuing on a positive trend, and there's going to be more information coming from FPAC and from the CDC. So before going any further, I would like the opportunity. So Steve, I'm kind of hitting you blindside here a little bit, but Mr. Steve Dick has joined us. He is the State Executive Director with the Farm Service Agency, and I'd like to give him an opportunity to introduce himself.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate the opportunity to participate with this. So I am the State Executive Director for Farm Service Agency. I just started this position in April of this year. I believe I started in here in about a month after Tony started in the position here. So certainly it's been a great experience, a lot of great partnerships with Farm Service Agency and NRCS and with the tribal ag folks. So I appreciate the opportunity. One thing I would like to just share with the group, and I think Fanny may be on the call as well. Fanny Brewer is going to be, it was just announced about 2 weeks ago by Secretary Vilsack that she will be joining the South Dakota State FSA Committee. And we have our first meeting that Fanny's going to participate in coming up in September. So welcome, Fanny. Look forward to your participation with the state committee. So thank you very much. I know Owen Fagerhog, our conservation chief, will be on the call later on. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. So the other item that's on the agenda for me to cover this morning would also be any follow-up from our last meeting. And I don't believe that we had any follow-up items from our last meeting to address, but if I'm wrong, if anybody would like to bring it up right now, we can try to address it. Oh, okay. There is a question in here. Just want to make sure. So the question from Mary Scott: how will CIS affect the present reservation fund pools? So the idea moving forward is to start looking at CIS for the reservation fund pools also, Mary. So this is going to be something that we're going to be asking. Well, we're going to be looking for projects is what it comes down to. So as there's So very similar process to the rest of the state. I don't know if we're quite to the same level as the rest of the state yet, but that's what we're driving to, is we're going to be looking for proposals on reservation grounds to focus our funding on. So we're going to need input from the tribes on what really are our priorities across the reservations, and we're going to try to focus our funding a little bit. This will get us in a position to be prepared for more of this funding that's going to be coming to us from the department. Is if we have more projects in mind, we're going to be able to be a little more specific or a little more focused on where we're putting our funding. So we might not be completely ready to go 100% in on the reservations at this point, but we're also looking for opportunities to improve this process. So as we work through this first year, the first couple of years of this conservation implementation strategy, as we find that there's problems with it or there's issues, we just need to be bringing them up so that we have the opportunity to continue to improve on the process. So thank you for that question, Mary. All right, so with that, are there any other questions in the chat that you see?
No, there's not right now.
Okay, so with that then, if you do have additional questions, please don't hesitate to throw questions in the chat or raise your hand at any point during the presentations, and we'll try to get back to you. With this, I'd like to hand it back to Daryl for tribal liaison parties.
Thank you, Tony. I just want to remind everybody on the meeting today and in attendance that we realize that sometimes you may have joined and you don't have a lot of history with some of our acronyms or programs. Don't be afraid to ask that question of what are you referring to when you say reservation fund pools. That's referring to one of our main cost share programs, or environmental quality incentive program. Sometimes we have certain fund pools. So just don't be afraid to ask those questions. I realize some of you may be new, and we certainly welcome you and want you to be able to have the conversations with us. At that, I'm going to share with you we asked for our tribal liaisons to share some activities they've been involved with, what they're up to, and for partly to share ideas and be able to communicate back and forth across the state on how we can all do a better job, or how we can assist in ways we hadn't previously thought of. And so these NRCS tribal liaison updates is a way to do that. First, I want to start out that we will run through our tribal liaisons at those tribes. We'll start at Standing Rock after I visit a little bit. We'll start in the northwest of Standing Rock and move south geographically, and then across the state from west to east, and end up with Lauren up at Sisseton. First of all, again, myself, I'm a new title as outreach coordinator and also state tribal liaison coordinator for the time being, at least. And one of the activities I've been involved in recently is assisting with one of our trainings that we call our conservation planning, generally for less experienced or newer employees. And we've added a section in there of planning in Indian country to help with that terminology and get all folks just a little basic understanding of some of the nuances and encouragement to continue that planning and those partnership efforts with our tribal partners and in Indian country. Also, just want to let you know we're preparing to have an NRCS presence at the Indian Relay Championships. That's going to be held in Fort Pierre in September. We'll be able to visit with and share information on grassland management and recruitment, and just be there for not only the teams and their team members that would be there, but also the attendees that are coming to watch that event. Maris?
Yeah, can you hear me, Daryl?
Yes, we can hear you good. And also attendees, if my screens if it gets slow, please let me know. But right now, Maris, you should have your screen up.
Yep, I see it. I guess just a couple highlights here. Attended a Tonka Fund meeting up at Prairie Knights Casino. I went up there with Dave. It was a pretty interesting meeting. Dave gave a kind of an overview of our EQIP program, and I assisted maybe a little bit, I guess. And the second day of that meeting was a farm tour down at Ron Brownotter's, going over his buffalo operation. Not completely sure, but there was some filming going on. I think there was a couple people doing some documentaries or something, productions, that sort of thing. So that was kind of interesting. And you can skip to the next slide there, Earl. I guess the other big thing is working with a new producer down by Little Eagle, assisting her through our EQIP program for high tunnels. She's interested in doing a community garden, some pollinator plantings, that sort of thing. So I did tap Mary for some help with some of these projects, and she's been a good assistance down there. So other than that, I guess I don't have a slide on it, but I do have a meeting set up with our THPO and Paige to go over a new agreement that's, I guess, being rewritten. So that'll be coming up here in the near future. That's all I got, Daryl.
Thank you, Maris. And for those in attendance, Paige is our state archaeologist, and regarding the Tribal Historic Preservation Office and agreement on working together on projects.
Hello, everyone. David Pasiska, Tribal Liaison on Cheyenne River, and some of the projects we've been working on. Yeah, we've been dealing with the drought up here, Emergency Conservation Program, ECP we call it, and this is just kind of a picture of a low or boggy dam and how dry they are, and how far they are down, and this is just an example of a tank that we've been installing. These are 2,300 gallon, and you can see the overground pipeline servicing these projects, but this is just an example of some of the things that you can do through ECP. And the next one, I guess, was a project that Dustin Jewett, he's a district conservationist for Zebach County, has been working on. It's a CIS that was submitted and funded this year through the EQIP program, and he's doing some stream bank shoreline protection, critical area planning, riparian forest buffer. You plant trees along the edge of the creek, and putting some fabric down to help them grow. You can see here the river, the Morrow River, is moving into the road and is actually cut into the road, and we're going to do some projects to help slow that down, and the transportation department for the tribes moving the roads. So we're working with them to get this project together, but all the glory goes to Dustin because he's doing all the work. So that's just a couple of the projects we're working on here on Cheyenne River. If you have any questions?
Thank you, Dave. Dave, did you say this project is part of the larger umbrella of a CIS or Conservation Implementation Strategy effort?
Yes, it is. One that we started in 2018 working on this project, and we've gotten some money this year to set aside for it. So, sometimes you got to get the planning done and the project set up before you can get it funded. So if you have projects, get started on them so we can get the groundwork and the process done to make sure that we can get these practices started and funded down the road.
Thank you, David. For those that are in attendance, you may not be able to see the legend very well, but there's some blue indicated lines on the north edge of that loop of that bend of the river, and that's indicating the stream bank or shoreline protection work that is planned and being implemented in that project. And as always, if you got questions during these updates, please ask at the time and also at the end. We can always go back and revisit one of these projects or one of these efforts that we're describing. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
And next, Brenda, we really want to thank Brenda Cano. She stepped in for Ogallala, Dakota. One of our tribal liaison, Caitlin, has left that position for other activities. And Brenda is a experienced NRCS employee who volunteered to continue with some of those efforts in that area. And Brenda's going to share a little bit about what she's been trying to help with in a little bit of time that she's been there. And also one of our partners or another entity that's in that area. Brenda?
Thank you, thank you, Daryl. And I want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to be the acting tribal liaison in Pine Ridge this summer. It's been a great experience, and working with the tribe on different land types like the tribal, the trust, the allotted, the fee lands. There are a lot of different requirements and a lot more for me to learn, to better assist the producers in Indian country, but we're all doing it for the same reason, and which is to help others help the land, and in the end, we'll all benefit. So during the summer, I've been tasked with the High Tunnel Strike Force contract. And what this is, it's a 30 high tunnel. We have 30 high tunnels contracted within one contract, and we're trying to do about 10 a year. Being a 5-year-old contract, and COVID kind of slowed us down, it sounds like. So being a 5-year-old contract, we really need to get these up and moving. And as you can see in the picture here, these things are massive in size. Well, they will grow a lot of produce as well, but we're having issues getting them set up right now. The one in the picture here is 24 foot tall by 40 foot wide and 70 foot long. We have one totally completed. We have 4 others that need the cover still put on them. And we're hoping to get that done here yet within the next month. Once we get these first 10 completed, then we'll be able to, well, the hope is to get the tribe paid back for those, and then they will be able to order the next 10. Maybe what we need to think about is maybe ordering some smaller ones, just for convenience and to help our producers, get them set up and get them up and running. For NRCS, our standards and specs require the middle of the high tunnel be 6 foot tall. So, we could scale these down a little bit if needed. And then the other thing I would like to talk to the tribes about is, shipping costs I know was an issue. So I don't know if this is something that maybe we could send some of your employees over to, Iowa or wherever we're going to get these to pick them up to kind of save on shipping costs. I don't know if that'd be an option. Let's see. I want to give a big shout out to Louis Janice. He's really helped me out on lining up extra help, whether it be day labor to help these folks get them set up, and trying to get some food and water out for anybody who's trying to help us get these set up. And then I was able to go over to Batesland. They have a pit garden. Now, I don't know if this is something that you guys would be interested in, but what they did here is they dug out 8 foot into the ground, and they're supposed to be able to grow in this year round. They're using geothermal, and they have like vents that open up automatically with the temperature. I did talk to, the gentleman's name is Raisin, I believe, who is kind of leading this. But I talked to one of the helpers there, and they said if we were interested, we may be able to get a tour in if somebody was interested in that. And let's see, what do we have next here? Oh, thistle. Thistle's been a big issue down there, in the Martin Pine Ridge area. Thankfully, this picture here that I got, we got them to clip it the very next day. So thankfully, all that seed didn't go blowing. So we've been trying to control that too, or work with producers to help control the thistle. And then, we're doing a lot of cultural resource investigations, I'll call it. And as I was out doing a pipeline, we seen 3 elk running through the field. And I'm telling you, I was in awe thinking, am I really seeing this? Because we have so many, I have so many coworkers in this area on the eastern part of the state that love to go elk hunting. And it sounds like they scout and they look for them all over. And here these just come running up past me. So anyway, I want to thank you all, and I hope you all have a great day. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Most of the time Brenda serves an NRCS office in Huron lately, so it should refer to further east. That's what she's referring to as Huron, South Dakota, but she's been helping us there with all Dakota projects. Any other questions for Brenda regarding the high tunnels or that structure at Batesland?
Thanks,
Mary
you guys.
Scott, you had a lot of activity.
Thanks, Daryl. Yes, good morning, everyone. I'll start with the 5th Annual Rosebud Adult and Youth Range Workshop that was held July 21st. And after a 2-year COVID shutdown of the activities in the area, we were able to get that up and going once again. It was held at the Tribal Ranch near Rosebud, and it included a walk through the pasture for plant identification with cultural and medicinal uses, discussion on similarity index with demonstrations on clipping total forage production and using the grazing stick for calculating available forage, stocking rate, and AUMs on native pastures. Grazing kit bags were provided to the adults, and backpacks filled with conservation information, activities, and items were given to the youth. Tance Herman, the NRCS State Grazing Lands Soil Health Specialist, also joined us that day with the rainfall simulator and demonstrated the importance of practicing good range management and farming methods to ensure proper water infiltration and soil quality by managing water runoff. The afternoon snack included fry bread with the choice of homemade chokecherry or wild grape jelly. This was an educational opportunity for all to learn more about native grasslands, as the land has much to teach us and serves as an excellent outdoor classroom and hands-on learning center. I was thankful for the NRCS staff, Cody Kartak out of the Winter Field office, and the SDSU Extension office with Sean Kelly and Ron Fredericks, and then Kim Cook and Joe Ross from the Tribal Ranch. Attendees included area producers, Sinte Gleshka University, our local tribal college, BIA staff, and youth from the Boys and Girls Club and Rosebud Todd County 4-H program. We also had some people from Global Volunteers that came from across the United States. They were in Rosebud to help with various projects and wanted to learn more about agriculture. So with that, we'll move to the next slide, Daryl.
Mary, before we do that, I just want to remind others that those that are listening, especially if you're with Tribal Department, Wildlife Department, if you know that schools want to put on a project like this, we can certainly assist. Mary and her crew down there have got a lot of experience, and we can do this at other places in the state also. Good job, Mary.
Thank you. Yeah, don't be afraid to reach out. I'll sure do what I can to help out, get one going in your area. So the next item on there is the Tribal Historic Preservation Office NRCS meeting. And just like Maris had mentioned earlier, we had a meeting with our local TIPO staff here at Rosebud, and Paige Olson, our NRCS archaeologist for South Dakota, joined us. And we basically just sat down face to face and discussed how the process was working, and we made any adjustments that we both agreed to in hopes that the future processes with cultural resources will go even smoother. The FSA 2021 Emergency Conservation Program, ECP, I think Dave highlighted a little bit about that. So we're just providing the technical assistance with water developments that are being installed. In particular, we had 7 practices on trust lands, and so I'm assisting those producers in working with the tribal policies and processes, and that being working with TIPO for cultural resource clearance and BIA easements, just like we do for the NRCS EQIP projects. Moving on, we've got the FSA CRP Conservation Enhancement Reserve Program, or CREP, and I've been asked by the Chief of Staff from the Tribal President's Office to assist with an agreement that's being developed for the Rosebud Sioux Tribe for that. National Bison Association Tour, that's going to be held on September 10th at the Antelope Creek Bison Ranch, which is east of Mission. Been asked to speak on NRCS's existence and regenerative grazing. So I'm looking forward to that coming up here in September. REDCO, so Rosebud Economic Development Corporation, their Sicangu Community Development Corporation, or CDC monthly meeting update. We just recently had that yesterday. And what we do is we meet on a monthly basis to discuss their conservation collaboration grants and agreement contract. We discuss activities as they relate to goals and objectives of the contract. We just go over the overall status of what they've been doing, anything that they need assistance with, and future possibilities. They're in the final year of their grants, so we're looking forward to wrapping that up and seeing what the future holds. St. Francis Fire update. There was a fire that was done in that happened in the middle of June this summer. It was in southwestern Todd County on trust land. About 3,810 acres burned, and included some of our timber and rangeland, some of the range units in that area. So spent quite a bit of time researching the fire information with BIA and trying to find any possible assistance that NRCS could provide. And we're ongoing with that. We're still working on seeing if there's anything that we can do. Finally, Farmland Protection and Policy Act, the AD 1006 form. I thought this was a little bit interesting, so I added it on the end here. It was our first formal request in all of my years of service, 21 years here as a tribal liaison at Rosebud. It was my first formal request from the BIA for a home site on trust land involving prime farmland. And it was the first time we went through the whole entire process. Assisted with it in gathering information from both sides and from the applicant, and worked with the NRCS state soil scientist, Nathan Jones, and we had a couple sections on that form that needed information and needed completed by Nathan. So we were able to get through that and get the form back to BIA so it could be presented to the next Land and Natural Resources meeting held at the tribe. With that, that's a highlight of my tribal liaison activities on the Rosebud. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. One thing I want to highlight is I think that Mary does a good job of regular, periodic meeting with our partners, whether that would be, and as far as other tribal departments from other tribes, whether that's wildlife department or with the Environmental Protection Office or with TIPO offices or with our BIA partners, regularly meeting up with them to making sure that we're on the same page and having that relationship built. This meeting is being recorded, and you can find this and all our other meetings, the recording, on our webpage, on our South Dakota NRCS webpage. If you go to the search button in the upper right-hand side and type in tribal assistance or something similar to that, you'll find a page that does list the recordings of these meetings. So you can go back and find those or share those with other people. Kyle?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kyle Heimerl, serving the Lower Rural Tribe. One of the big projects that I've been working on, I met with Lower Rural Farm Co. They've got a ranch and cropland, but on the ranch side, they had new management this year. And with that comes kind of a lack of institutional knowledge. So they asked me to do a water inventory, just kind of like technical assistance to see where their tanks are, what they've got, and they want really the end product will be, for them, the end product will be a map with all the locations and the types of tanks and the condition. But for us, it's a great opportunity to actually start this planning effort of where do we go next. And there's been a lot of work done over the years by NRCS on the ranch. So I've kind of summarized a lot of that data and, you know, the age of the tanks and locations and things like that. But We had in our records about 58 tanks on the ranch. I've found 10 to 15 more that we're going to be able to add to the map that we didn't know about. Those were put in on the producer's dime. And I'm looking at things like condition, flow, pressure, locations. And again, this is just help with future planning efforts on the ranch. And that's been taking up a big chunk of my time, but the ranch managers are extremely happy with what we've been done. And just kind of echoing that this big concern, Dave and Mary touched on it, working on some ECP out there. Through this effort, we found there are 5 pastures that they're in Stanley County, so they qualify for ECP, approximately totaling 3,000 acres that are not watered. It's very remote. Traditionally, in that upper left-hand corner, you can see one of the dams out there, but traditionally they've all been watered by either dams or an ephemeral stream coming through it. So we're working with, we've met with well drillers and the Farm Corps, and working to come up with an emergency water plan to get those pastures watered so we can get livestock on. They're not able to run any livestock on those acres right now. So that's kind of the big stuff that I've been working on. And hopefully, well, one of the challenges that we're going to face, I guess, in case anybody else is going down the same road, we've decided that the least cost alternative would be a well. It's very remote. There's complications going through grasslands, which is federally owned. But the least cost alternative is a well. The well driller is scheduled over a year out. We've contacted 2 more well drillers in the western side of the state who are also all well over scheduled a year out. So we're trying, and with ECP, you have a 6-month deadline to get all practices installed. So this is one of the challenges we're facing. We're hoping that we can beg, convince the well driller to move us up on his schedule so that we can actually get this done. But regardless, the planning is getting done. If everything goes to plan, the ECP will provide the water, and then we can build off of that to put more tanks in to better distribute the water throughout those pastures. They're, I don't know, about 600 acres apiece. That's kind of where I'm at right now. So thank you for your time.
Kyle, just so I can summarize, if I didn't get it correct, the Lower Rural Farm Corporation's ranch manager, is new to the position. And so you are helping do a inventory of the ranch, which is heavily weighted towards their water infrastructure right now. And as that planning process, you're discussing alternatives, you're coming down to probably needing a well to supply existing dryer tanks or new sites that don't have tanks. And well drillers are few and far between. And the program that might be used would be the FSA's Environmental Conservation Emergency Conservation Program for urgent water needs. And did I get that correct?
Yes, that's a good summary, Daryl. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do is, move within that 6 months to get the emergency water out there. So they, we haven't had a lot of rainfall in that part of the world, and we're just not seeing very much for dam recharge. So there is a possible 4-month extension, I believe, but we're not, we're not banking on that. But we're trying to get all the pieces in place so that, once that well is drilled, we can move and get everything done. So yes, so thank you for the summary.
Russell?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Russell Felicia. I'm the tribal liaison for Crow Creek. We've been pretty busy in the Crow Creek area. We've had a lot of cultural resource reports done recently, so we're pretty busy keeping these projects going. And, you know, we have a lot of pipeline and tank that are being completed and some that are being certified. This particular picture is a CRP and equip field that we've been working with the Crow Creek Wildlife Department with. Our goal was kind of to develop some dense nesting cover for wildlife habitat, and we have been working pretty hard trying to fight the weeds, and we've been clipping and mowing, and we're just really trying to stay on top of it for the first year for the establishment period, and it's been pretty dry in that area as well, so hopefully we can get some more rain. Other than that, we have a winter winds project that's kind of in the works with tree belts for protecting some of the housing around the tribe. We're waiting to hear back on some CIS proposals for some tribal water for livestock, and I guess other than that, I know we have kind of been in touch with the wildlife department and BIA, and we're maybe trying to figure out a way if we can get our area range specialist to come up for some kind of range inventory or health day, or maybe two. Other than that, that's all the highlights I have for you guys. Thank you.
And Russell, you were just visiting about the bringing one of our range specialists up, and that's, you're looking at training to help share our rangeland health indicators and such with some of the tribal staff, correct?
Yep, that's correct. Just kind of go over the different species and indicators, like you said.
And yeah, we wanted to share this picture. It may not be the prettiest picture, but what Russell is sharing there is that it just showing the extra work that's needed when we're converting some of this marginal cropland to a perennial system. And so right now those weeds are mowed off again, and that's why it looks really brown, but trying to keep the weeds back for the new perennials to become established. Thank you, Russell. Any other questions for Russell? Ethan Behringer, our tribal liaison there with Yankton Sioux, is not able to be with us today. He had other obligations. And I don't believe there is someone else online from that office today, because I said I would visit with your crew, but I just wanted to double check. Is there anyone else that worked with Ethan on this project that wants to share? I told Ethan I would share the pictures, and he was working with a individual face spotted eagle, part of the Braveheart Society there, Yankton Sioux, on an effort that they are focusing on some property of rehabilitating or restoring a shelter belt, and also trying to bring the native grasses back into a brome infested native rangeland. And they had an outreach event at that site with some of our range individuals. Rod Voss is an NRCS employee that helps with rangeland work. He was there to share ideas with a group that came in to visit. And also Nathan Kafer, our partner of ours with as a forester, and talk about the native trees and restoration process of restoring those trees. Don't think I have anything else to add on that right now. Lauren?
Morning, this is Lauren Odlin. I am the tribal liaison with Assistant Wahpeton Oyate. Picture that I have up is kind of what I've been working on a lot this summer, the last couple of months. We have a pretty high CRP workload and actually, when I say that we had like the 4 general and 38 signups for like 1,986 acres, that was just in Roberts County. I thought about it after I'd sent that. I also have some Marshall and Day. So we're we're probably closer to the 50 contracts and over 2,000 acres of CRP that's going back in. And we actually have probably, let's see, about 4,000 acres, I believe, of CRP under 100 contracts. Back about, 11, 12 years ago, I guess, previously the CRP had been the leases were operating the land. Tribe was getting probably a 60% share of the contract. And I kind of got the wild idea that maybe it would be better if the tribe actually looked at, so I'd kind of put together a proposal type thing to share with the program manager, Elva Quinn, that I was working with. And we looked at it, and he was like, yep, that sounds like a good deal. But what I looked at is if the tribe was to actually take control of these CRP contracts, it would increase the revenue or the CRP payments to the tribe by about a little over 100,000 a year. So on a 10-year contract, we were increasing, about $1 million. So the council was very, very much in favor of purchasing the needed equipment for the tribe to take over those contracts. So anyway, that's been a lot of what I've been working on last couple months. And conservation desktop and old guys just don't always work real well together. So it was kind of been a struggle a little bit for me, but finally got her done. And we also do have one grassland CRP too, I guess, that we've got going on. Other stuff, earlier this summer, Public Affairs was out. We had a high tunnel producer, tribal producer that had put up a high tunnel. So they came out, did a video, and there'll be a written in print. I'm not sure exactly when that's going to be coming on, but Andrew's kind of taking care of that. We have I think it's 5 or 6 equips that we're currently working on that for most of them are grassland, where it's water development, cross fencing and so forth. And the biggie that we're working on, it's about 1,800 acres, which in our area with the fractionated checkerboard land ownership, for us to put together 1,800 acres in one spot is pretty kind of impressive. I didn't have anything to do with that. That was just the way it kind of came about. But we've got about $160,000 contract on there with about, like I said, 1,800 acres. I think there's 10 or 11 paddocks it'll be divided into. Storage tank, probably, I think it's 4 tanks, about 5 miles of pipeline and so forth. So looking forward to that being completed. And kind of a neat little one thing that we've got going on with our equip from last year that we have it's an 80-year-old tribal member. I shouldn't probably say her age, but I won't say her name at the same time. But she moved back from Oregon, and when she lived back here on her land, her and her husband raised cattle. She wanted to, when she moved back, what she wanted to do was to get a hold of the land. I mean, the land that some of it she owned, some of it she was heir to, and so she's been getting control of it, or getting the leases on it. And we're doing some fencing, water development, so forth, because she wants to get something started. And she's a very, very young 80-year-old. You would never believe she is by looking at her and listening to her and following her around. But she wanted to get something started like this, basically for hopefully for one of her grandchildren to be able to get into actually raising livestock and taking care of things. So it's kind of a neat one. I'll be excited when that one is completed. Fencing's going on right now, and hopefully we'll be able to drill a well yet this fall. If same thing, well drillers are are hard to get to up here also. But so that's kind of, I think, most of what I have been working on that I can think of.
Thank you, Lauren. And just,
Bet.
I want to summarize your CRP visit, and because you are a little bit unusual from other parts of the state, but originally, a lot of the tribe's CRP contracts had the previous farmer who was leasing that tract of land on the contract. And through working with the tribe decided to, as renewals and as opportunities came up, the tribe put on the personnel and the hours and the equipment to manage those CRP stands themselves and be the sole decision maker and operator, and of course, then the earnings recipient for those CRP contracts. So that's kind of a new stage you help the tribe through. And so now you have about 50 renewal contracts on tribal land within those 3 counties that the tribe has land in there in that System Wapaton area, correct?
Correct.
You. And so that's just a brief visit on what NRCS has been up to, maybe not specifically our tribal liaisons, but those offices and our employees who work in those areas. So if you got any questions, we can sure visit about them now. Also, and for those who are listening to the recording, you can email me or give me a call at that phone number that's on the screen there, and we can certainly dive in deeper. Any questions for our tribal liaisons or NRCS at this point?
Great job on the presentations, folks.
Kent, I believe that if there's no further questions popping in, that you can visit with us on a soil health update.
Yes, hi, good morning, everyone. Kent Vlieger, State Soil Health Specialist here. I'm glad you could all take time out of your busy schedules to join us for this important meeting. So we're going to change gears a little bit, and I'm going to share my screen with you all and then turn my camera on.
Kent, did we lose you?
Am I back?
Now you are, yep.
Okay, sorry, had a little glitch there. So, yep, I'm going to share my screen with everyone. Okay, is that coming through okay, Daryl?
Yes.
Okay,
Like the
good.
cows.
Okay, good. So we're going to change gears. We're going to have just a kind of a little educational session here. So for those of you that have been attending regularly, last meeting we wrapped up a series that I had titled No Till Doesn't Work. And it was basically just a way to catch people's attention and with that title, but we discussed the 5 principles of soil health. And so with wrapping that up, decided to come up with a new series, and we're going to take a deeper dive onto soil organic matter here over the next couple of meetings. And today we're going to talk about the basics of really what soil organic matter is. And so just as a reminder, here's our principles of soil health. And we break them down into 2 categories. The protection side that you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen, that's really what NRCS or Soil Conservation Service has been focused on for many decades. And really that involves minimizing disturbance and maximizing soil cover. So, really those 2 principles really kind of center in a lot on no-till on our ag ground. But for the past decade or so, we've been doing a better job of focusing on and realizing the importance of soil health and regenerating our soils and getting them back to their productive state, like they were under our native systems. And so the last three categories or principles of our soil health are maximizing living roots, maximizing biodiversity, and integrating livestock or animals back into our systems. So we've got a flow chart here, and I know a lot of people's eyes kind of glaze over when they see flow charts, but really this does a really good job of explaining what soil organic matter is. And if we start at the top, we've got soil organic matter, and then it divides into two. And those two categories, the main categories of soil organic matter, are labile organic matter, or the best way to think of that is the active part of the organic matter in our soils. And the next category is humus, which is really an older term for now. Basically, we call it stable, or a way to think of it is the slow form organic matter in our soils. So we're going to start with the labile organic matter, or the active organic matter in our soils, which is divided into four categories. And those four categories are biomass, or living organisms, just like you or I. Goes all the way down to earthworms and the bacteria and the fungi and the nematodes. Everything that's alive in the soil falls under that biomass category, and it also includes our living plants. The next category is detritus, and that's basically the dead plant material. And then we have particulate organic matter, and then free or dissolved biomolecules. And we'll talk briefly on each one of those now. So the biomass is anything that's living. You'll see here on the picture frame there, I've got circled a nematode that's eating a piece of organic matter. And the nematode it's almost transparent. You can almost see right through it. But nematodes are one of those fractions of the soil biomass, the living part, that are really important. For the most part, they are predators in the soil. Most of our crop farmers, when we talk with them about nematodes, get a little bit nervous because we're used to hearing about nematodes when they are a pest to our systems. For example, in our soybeans, soybean cyst nematode. But a large majority of nematodes, for example, are beneficials in the soil. Okay, here's another photo of living biomass, and this is a really zoomed in photo of a fine root that's part of a grass plant. And you'll notice that the large white kind of rope-like structures are that actual fine root. And so it's zoomed in quite a bit here. So it's a really small root here, that white rope-looking structure that you would just barely be able to see with your own eyes. And what I've circled here is a couple of things of interest. And if you can see it, there's really fine kind of hair structures coming out from that white part, or the fine root. And what you're looking at there is mycorrhizal fungi. And so that is that really important part of the soil life that helps to bind our soils. It helps our plants really access more parts of the soil by forming associations with them. And then also I'd like to point out the small soil aggregate that's attached to the root. And what I'm trying to emphasize there is that our soils aggregate and form that really good structure only in one way, and that's by associating with living plants and living biology below ground. They are what creates our aggregates and really good soil structure. And you'll notice that soil aggregates a lot faster and better when it's closer to living plant life and the biology associated with it. Okay, the next category of our active organic matter, and this is one that a lot of us tend to think of when we think of organic matter, and that's the detritus, or the dead plants. And so really the detritus, or that fraction of the soil organic matter, that active part, it's really the stuff that you can still ID. You can still ID it, and you can tell what it was when it was alive. And so this is a great example in this photo because it shows a lot of plant material that was recently alive but now has senesced or is dead. And examples of that would be like a corn stalk, or or a leaf from a soybean plant or a grass type plant or any other type of plant that is now dead, that you can still ID what it was when it was alive. Okay, the next fraction is the particulate organic matter. And this is where we have that previous level of soil organic matter, that detritus that has now been broken down a little bit. So this is after it's been chewed on by bugs or earthworms or bacteria or fungi. You can still maybe ID it just a little bit, but it's really once it gets to this stage, it's really active as far as being digested and becomes really readily available to all forms of soil biology. And so this is kind of that portion that we like to think of as when you look at something that's been broken down quite a bit. So if you have an old leaf pile sitting in your yard and it's really kind of broken down and it looks nice and crumbly, this is that particular organic matter portion. The last category of our labile organic matter, our active portion, is byproducts and wastes. And so the graphic we have here kind of shows some syringes coming out of a tree and out of the bacteria and fungi and out of the plant root. So really this is kind of the byproducts and waste. So as soil life below ground is eating and processing sugars and carbohydrates, they're also exuding some of this liquid portion. And so just think of it as the byproducts of wastes. And it's really easily accessible to other forms, bacteria and fungi. And I like to think of it kind of like an IV. If we were to have an IV and it's, feeding you, if you're in the hospital, it's really easily accessible calories for your body. Think of this, the byproducts and wastes as something similar to that. Okay, and our second category, and this is really an important part of our soil profile, especially here in the Plain States. And it's really important because it's a large fraction of our organic matter in our soils. 60 to 80% of our soils consists of this humus, or the stable organic matter or organic carbon. And it's really what gives our soils their resiliency and their productivity, and why we've been able to crop them for long periods and they still maintain their productivity. So you'll notice with these two arrows popping up that there's two portions of the humus or stable soil organic matter. And it's the particulate organic matter, which was also under the active part, or the labile, and then the protected or the biodiverse part, which is also under the labile. The difference between these forms is that these are really broken down so far that they are not necessarily really digestible, you could say, for the soil life, and they're attached to soil particles like clay. And when they attach to the clay, they're not easily accessible. They're also protected by aggregates. When aggregates are formed, they kind of form, think of it like a protective bubble around it, so that they are not, soil biology is not able to easily access it. This portion of the soil organic matter in the soil is important when you think on the cropping side. And if you're familiar with, the exchange capacity in our soils, organic matter is able to hold on to a lot of nutrients, and then it is able to then release that hopefully back to our plants for their growth and productivity. One last category that is not talked about very much is char. And you'll see I have a picture of a grass fire here. So our native prairie system had regular occurrences of prairie fires that occurred. And a large portion of our organic matter in our soils was actually from the char from those fires. So when a prairie fire went rolling across the plains, 1 to 3% of the biomass that was burned was left on the ground as char. And then that char was able to, through soil life and soil biology, was able to become part of the soil profile, and it's very stable. And for example, if you look at forest ecosystems, 5 to 10% of their soil profile when it comes to organic carbon is basically char. And so that might seem like a lot, but when we look at our prairie systems, our grassland systems, some studies have shown that 40 to 50% of our stable organic carbon in the soil has come from char and from prairie fires. And so this is a part of our system that we're kind of missing. We look at prescribed fires maybe to control brome grass or weeds or invasives, but we don't necessarily recognize the importance of providing that stable carbon back into our soils. So this is kind of a real quick overview of what our organic matter is in our soils. And over the next several meetings, we'll continue on with this series on soil organic matter, and we'll talk about the importance of soil organic matter, how we lose it, how we can build it back again, and some of the important properties that it gives to us when we are looking at production agriculture, whether on the cropland side or in our grassland production systems. So as always, there's my contact information. Feel free to email me or give me a call. I love to get questions and comments from anyone that may be interested. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Daryl and Tony.
Thank you, Kent. I guess one of the additional messages I want to say is that if you have further questions and want some on-site assistance or demonstrations, visit with our field office, visit with our tribal liaisons. And if we need to pull in a specialist such as Kent or someone else from our team, we may be able to come there and do a event and show and tell other leadership with the tribe or leadership there within your BIA, some of these soil health activities that are taking place under the ground and what affects them. Thank you. Any questions for Kent? With that, I think we'll move into our programs department and let them, Krisha, Jennifer, Brandon, and Marcus visit on their programs.
You want me to go ahead? I'm ready.
Yep, you're first on the list. We'll take it. Thanks, Krisha.
You bet. Good morning, everyone. My name is Krisha Letty, and I'm the acting RCPP coordinator. I've been in this capacity since June, and I just want to share that it's great to see so many familiar faces on the call. I know many of the tribal liaisons through my career with NRCS. RCPP stands for the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, and it promotes the coordination of NRCS conservation activities with partners. Through RCPP, NRCS seeks to co-invest with partners to implement projects that demonstrate innovative solutions to conservation challenges and provide measurable improvements on the land. With the recent passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, there will be 40 million, and that's a 40 billion, put into existing USDA programs, and many of these dollars will be funneled to grants and agreements and RCPP. RCPP is unique in that it is a one-to-one match. So NRCS will equally match what the partner can contribute. RCPP is a partnership program and where the partner comes up with the conservation projects and resource concerns that they want to address, and NRCS and myself as coordinator will assist the partner through the process of applying and implementing those projects. So I'd like to share that South Dakota currently has 9 RCPP projects in various phases, and 6 of these are classic projects, which basically mirror an EQIP contract, CSP contract. The contracting development is all done through the Conservation Field Office and using CD. The other way to do an RCPP is through AFA, which is the Alternative Funding Arrangement, and South Dakota has 3 of those projects. So there's 9 total projects in South Dakota currently, and this accounts for 39 million for conservation funding. The newest project to get funded, which was just announced last Friday, is the conservation easements in the Black Hills of South Dakota. And this was sponsored by the South Dakota Agricultural Land Trust. The project was awarded 4.2 million and was one of 41 projects funded nationwide. This project will protect South Dakota farms and ranches so that the land remains in agricultural use by putting conservation easements on that ground to prevent it from being converted over to urban sprawl. The projects that are actively going on right now, I'm just going to give a brief overview so you can kind of get an idea of what's occurring in the state. I'm currently working with the Big Sioux River Watershed Partnership Project, and they have successfully contracted 26 producer contracts, and that is primarily in Southeast South Dakota. And I am working right now to get those contracts obligated through the system. Most of those are going to be for soil health improvement practices, such as cover crops. The other one that is occurring in the western part of the state is the Belle Fourche River Watershed Project. And they are currently working right now with producers to get conservation commitments on contracts. The other one that's moving forward is the project with Ducks Unlimited, and that is unique because it is an AFA. So those AFA projects are where the partner does all the planning, they do the conservation plan, the contract, and they take the lead on that. And that's why it's called an alternative funding arrangement. They took 15 applications, and through their screening process, we're going to be working with doing 5 conservation contracts. And those are primarily going to be looking at doing conservation cover 327, where they're converting crop ground to native permanent vegetation, and then also doing some soil health practices such as cover crops. So RCPP proposals, the timeline for last year, the notice of funding was released in January, and I'm anticipating it'll be very similar for 2023. And then the deadline was announced in mid-April. And nothing has been announced as of yet, but if you're interested in working with a partner, or maybe a partner has ideas and just needs to know how to do the process, you can by all means reach out to me. And remember that it is a 1-to-1 match. So the partner comes up with the money and NRCS will match that. And if you have any questions, again, please reach out to me and I'd be more than happy to work you through that process. Thank you. Are there any questions? I'll turn it over to the next speaker. Oh, there is a question.
You have one.
Yeah, this is Bryce Edwards with the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. You mentioned that project in the Black Hills. What exactly does that pertain to? What kind of steps in that funding? You said you're going to keep it into ag and.
Right. So this, I'm aware that this, they're doing something similar in Montana around Billings, where they had the foresight. I think this proposal was submitted a year ago to basically conserve and maintain that the farmland out there that is currently being used for ag production will remain in ag production and not get converted to be developed for housing or businesses. So that is what that type of easement will be doing.
Do you know exactly where that's located, or?
I do not. I'm gonna be working with the partner here in September to kind of finalize their programmatic agreement. I know it's in the Black Hills, but specifically, I'm not sure where. So.
I know they're in their process of updating their forest plan, which they got like 15 years starting this year.
Well, this will be with private land. This is all going to be with private landowners.
Okay, thank you for that information.
You bet. Thank you for the question. Well, if you think of anything else, by all means, I will drop my email in the chat and you can surely reach out to me. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Wirtz. I work with the Environmental Quality Incentive Program as the program manager for South Dakota. I'm going to share my screen real quick. And I'm just going to have a quick breakdown here of where the dollars went for 2022 in the tribal areas of South Dakota. As you can see, each of the reservations had an allocation in 2022. There was 48 assessments ranked, and 16 of them have been currently selected for funding. And then in beginning farmer and socially disadvantaged, you can see that the numbers there too, we had over 144 applications ranked in those two fund pools, and we selected 32 for funding in beginning farmer and socially disadvantaged. We are still currently working to fund applications for 2022. We just got $2.5 million additional funds in late last week, so we're working on a plan for that. And moving forward into 2023, there's still quite a bit of planning to do in moving forward in our CIS plan at 100%. So not quite sure exactly how that's all going to play out in every location. So more to come, and we will share that at our next meeting. So is there anybody that has any questions for EQIP? Okay, well, I will pass it on to the next person.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Brandon Kotke. Currently the acting assistant state conservationist for programs. Joyce wasn't able to make it here today, so I'm just going to take a brief moment and cover her CSP program update for her. Pretty busy year for CSP in fiscal year 22. In total, had about 523 applications. In our first initial allocation, we received right around $8.6 million. With that, we were able to fund about 57 contracts. Then back in May, we did receive our second allocation, which was just for a little bit over $4 million. Through that, we were able to fund an additional 19 contracts. We did receive a third allocation with about 2.7 million. And out of that allocation, we funded 7 more contracts. And then just recently this week, early Monday, we received another $1.3 million. From there, we're going to be roughly about 7 to 9 more applications that we'll be able to fund. So all in total for our CSP Classic, we did do about $17.5 million in CSP contracts there, roughly right about 92. Out of that was about $1.2 million at beginning farmer and 1.03 for socially disadvantaged. So the last few that we got in here just this week, we got to have obligated here by September 15th. So our field office staff are working pretty diligently to get things done here quick this year. For our CSP renewals, the application deadline was April 15th. We did receive 333 applications. We have not obligated anything yet. We're kind of waiting on some national guidance to come right after October 1st and our full allocation before we proceed with those. Our last CSP initiative, our grassland conservation initiative, offers sent out around now by FSA with an application deadline in about mid-October, and with a goal of having those contracts obligated by the end of December here. So in all, pretty busy year for our field office staffs out there working on the CSP. They did a great job getting everything in. kind of breaking down on the last wire here to get the remaining few obligated. I'm just going to take a brief moment to mention CIS since it was mentioned by a few other folks out there. Currently right now, we do have all of our proposals in. We have about 20 full proposals that we are reviewing. Our hope is to make our final selections here to the middle of next week. And once we have those selections made, we'll be getting that out to everyone so we know what projects that we'll be moving forward with in fiscal year 23. So a great year. The program staff and all of our other field off staff have been working hard. So I guess I'd ask if anyone has any questions for me on the CSP stuff at this time. And thank you, Daryl, for qualifying some of those acronyms. Appreciate that. I guess there's no questions. I can move it over to Marcus Rock.
All right, good morning, everybody. Marcus Rock, Acting Easement Program Manager. I just have a brief update on our Agricultural Conservation Easement Program. And I'll specifically be talking more to the Wetland Reserve Easement portion of that, or WRE. 2022, we're still processing and working through funding 9 offers this year, and that totals 530.3 acres. 5 of those offers are from our Vermilion River CIS project that was approved in 2021. The other 4 projects are located in Hutchinson County, Roberts County, and Tripp counties. Those agreements to purchase the conservation easements, or APCEs we call them, are going out within the next 2 weeks, hopefully here, so we can wrap those up and get them going by the end of our fiscal year, the end of September here. Over the summer here, there has been a change in our compatible use authorization policy, or CUA policy, if you're familiar with them. And in particular, that time of haying that we allowed, or in the past. We used to allow haying to start July 15th. We can no longer do that. That starting date is now August 2nd to align with the CRP primary nesting season. We have restoration work going on throughout the summer here and more planned this fall. We had 4 easements totaling 271 acres that were seeded in the last couple months here. And we have 5 more easements that have had seedbed preparation done and are still in progress under both our federal contract and landowner contracts. We're also in the process of setting up more projects under a federal contract, so we'll have more of that work going on here this fall as well. We did some partial seedings on 10 easements this spring here, totaling 127 acres. That was under our Habitat Forever cooperative agreement. And then we have also had multiple other practices completed this spring and summer, including obstruction removal, weed control or clippings, and wetland restorations. Going to cover just briefly here our water bank program, which does fall under our easement programs. We are working on funding 11 of those applications for 2022. And that totals 808.3 acres. And then just looking ahead about the next month here, our Wetland Reserve Enhancement Partnership project proposals are due September 23rd. That announcement went out roughly 2 weeks ago, and applicable information was in that announcement. And if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Marcus. Any questions for our financial assistance program staff? You can always ask later when we finish up the meeting too, and with that, with respect for your time, we'll ask if Owen was able to join us today from Farm Service Agency or Steve and visit on some
I am,
CRP
Daryl.
updates. Hello, Owen.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, just briefly, with the tribal liaison partner update portion of this meeting, there was a lot of things touched on that FSA is the agency that a participant would make application to. Some of those topics being the CRP program, Conservation Reserve Program, and the ECP program, the Emergency Conservation Program. Right now, where we're at with the Conservation Reserve Program within FSA is coordinating with our technical partner, Natural Resource Conservation Service, in developing plans on the accepted offers under our Grassland CRP program, our General CRP Sign Up 58, and our Continuous Sign Up 57. Currently, I guess some results from those signups under the General CRP sign up, we had 20,909 offered acres, and we got 14,000 of those acres accepted, consisting of 153 offers. Those contracts will all start October 1st. The Grassland CRP sign up, if I recall my statistics correctly, South Dakota was third in the nation on accepted acres. We had 564,976 acres offered, and we realized 424,984 of those that are going to make it to contract. About a 75% acceptance rate. So very popular, lot of acres, you know, in the western part of the state and throughout South Dakota in general, but very, very good acceptance and good participation. Pleased with those results. Currently in South Dakota, we got about 29,800 contracts enrolled, and that consists of all sign-up types, totaling 1.7 million and some change in total acres under contract, with a bulk of those right at 800,000 acres under the Grassland CRP. So again, speaks to the popularity of that working lands CRP program that we can offer through FSA. ECP, Emergency Conservation Program. We're finishing out the 2021 drought. As it was indicated earlier, there are some timelines that we have to work within at the local state level. With the different authorities, we can go about a 10-month window on initial approval, a one-time extension to get those practices installed. Anything outside of that would have to go up to national authorities to get the approval to extend and continue completion of those practices when it results in, you know, lack of contractors, continued drought conditions, can't get the well finished, materials are backlogged, we can't get our hands on what we need to get that installation complete. So we're dealing with some of those. We did have 11 counties submit and eligible for 2022 drought measures. So we're moving forward with those. And we had 32 counties that qualified from the May 12th derecho event that affected eastern South Dakota. Straight line winds, a lot of debris removal, things of that nature that were being implemented in the eastern part of the state. So currently what's been paid out on the 2021 drought and through some 2022 and activities has been about 8.6 million. There's currently about $18 million on the books yet that are approved to be implemented, but have not yet been completed or bills submitted so that we can calculate the cost share and get those monies paid out to the participants that applied. So a lot of things going on, a lot of opportunity for participants for assistance, whether it's conservation measures, drought relief. those types of activities. So with that, I guess I'd open it up for any questions. If there are none for me, I am going to turn it over to Brandon Walter, who is going to review some of the workload on the planning piece within the CRP. Brandon's a partner with FSA that works for NRCS and the technical side of the planning piece for the Conservation Reserve Program. So with that, I guess, Brandon, I'd turn it to you.
All right, thanks, Owen. I'll just flip my camera on here for a second, just so everybody can kind of see who I am. But I'm the state biologist with NRCS out of Huron, and along with your packet on the invite here, there was an Excel spreadsheet on CRP workload. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just to kind of give everybody an idea of what exactly this spreadsheet is actually saying. So I'll go ahead and shut my camera off so the bandwidth can be saved a little bit. But on this spreadsheet, what we do is we're breaking down all the different signups. Owen had mentioned sign up 57 for continuous and 58 for general, and then 204 for grasslands. And of course, there's many different aspects to the continuous sign up, from wetland practices to trees to waterways to the pheasant habitat. So everything is kind of tracked throughout FSA. What they have is they call them the Coles reports, is where they track their county's workload. And then we have a workload discussion every Thursday just to try to stay on top of meeting the end of the fiscal year, September 30 deadline for conservation plan development. So what I do is I take them Coles reports and I put them into this, what we call a resource unit conservation report, or a RUC report. And our CS is realigned in the last couple, 2 or 3 years into these resource units. And this report just helps our assistants for field operations in Rapid, Pier, and as well as in Brookings, just to kind of track where the hot spots are, where the majority of the workload is. And we have some other partners with Pheasants Forever and Ducks Unlimited, and possibly even some conservation districts that we can utilize to, whether it's doing field checks or in the conservation plan development, in order to meet them deadlines, so that the Farm Service Agency staff has the time and the ability to get everything loaded into their systems for that 1 October start date. So I just wanted to kind of explain, we have these columns, the counties, obviously, and then what we have are completed, submitted for plan, and then submitted to COC, and then the COC approved. And then there's a legend on each one of these tabs for this Excel spreadsheet here. And it kind of explains, what the status is, and basically an offer that a producer or a participant would make kind of flows from the left to the right on this spreadsheet as it gets moved through signatures and conservation plans and getting approved by the county committee. So you'll see the continuous CRP, and this doesn't include our clear 30s, which are basically our 30-year kind of an easement type CRP in a sense. And then we have an FWP, which is our farm to wetland tab down at the bottom. So there's going to be different workloads with some of these continuous offers. But you'll just see the total numbers. And then if you can scroll up through this spreadsheet and kind of see where the majority are submitted for plan, the column D there, that's where the producers have signed an application showing interest in CRP, and it's went so far as to come over to NRCS for the technical determination, and then to complete a conservation plan with the producer and get a signature from the producer. Once the signature is on from the producer that they want to go ahead with what the plan as it was put together, then it slides over to the submitted to the county committee, and then the FSA county committee reviews it, and then they approve it. And then once it's approved, it slides over to the COC approved column. So, but just kind of, I'm going to flip over here to the grasslands tab. That's kind of what our hot button topic is right now. As Owen mentioned, we have a tremendous workload for grassland CRP in South Dakota. And as you can see under the accepted column, grasslands in general will have another column called accepted, and them are the ones that are the offers that participants made that were accepted for funding. And as you can see in the submitted to plan column, we have a lot of them submitted for plan, and you know, you can kind of see Edmonds County has 78 of them, and I know Perkins County up here has 115 of them that were accepted into the grassland program. So all in all, you know, Owen mentioned acres, and I'll just mention on offers here is we had 1,301 accepted, and currently we have, of the ones that were accepted that have agreed to go ahead with it and submit for a conservation plan for NRCS to start their work, there's about 1,250 of them. So it's a pretty big workload, and we're going to push pretty hard here in the next, you know, 3 to 4 weeks and move staff as needed to get the work done. So that's all I have, Daryl and Owen. And if there's any questions, you can either submit them in the chat or ask right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Owen and Brandon, and I'll direct your attention to a little discussion we had in the chat and ask if there's any other clarification, but discussion in the chat is regarding the ECP extension that Owen visited about and Tribal Historic Preservation Office or other consultations that need to be done. And what Owen was explaining there is that generally most of that is done prior to becoming an official application, and if that's the case, well, I just want to continue working with those partners on the ground locally to get those projects done and that consultation and that work done as soon as possible. Any other further discussion on that topic or on CRP or ECP? With that, I want to remind you too that after this meeting, if you want, you can certainly email me or call me. I put my email and phone number in the chat. Just a quick note, my phone has not been operating since Tuesday night, but it should be back up and running soon. But if you have any suggestions for other topics, or if we should do less of a topic or more of a topic, please let us know. We sure want to hear that. And with that, we've moved to more of a part where we want to ask our partners or others online if they would like to share and introduce themselves. And I guess I'm going to call out Fanny Brewer with IAC if she's still online. Fanny, would you like to say hi?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, good. Thank you, Fanny.
Oh, shoot, I tried to turn my camera on and it doesn't work. Hi, I'm Fanny Brewer. I am with the Intertribal Agricultural Council. We're a national organization that's been in existence since 1987. And I am the technical assistant for the Great Plains region, which is Nebraska, South Dakota, and North Dakota. And I am here in support of the tribal producers and the tribes in their best interest with USDA programs. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad you invited me. Thank you.
Any questions for Fanny? Is there other guests or not NRCS that would like to introduce themselves? Bryce or some of our BIE partners, would you like to say hi? And do you have any thoughts to share with us? Any questions for us at NRCS? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Bryson Woods again. I'm on tribal council with Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe, and in this constitution, it has agronomy and farm demonstrations, and the public law too with the American Indian Agriculture Resource Management Plan. which kind of got a draft going on agronomy, and would like to get more information for tribal council, even though I have a draft that's with the legal right now, on mainly regenerative soil practices, which NRCS is kind of spearheading through. I think he's retired now, but I've seen his videos, and he was educating the farmers on how the soil structure and all these microbes in the soil, these little critters that keep that soil healthy, and moving back in that direction. And because of the drought and other things, seems like what's the position of NRCS on regenerative soil practices? And what I learned from watching his videos is that a lot of farmers are not aware of this. Like a lot of elected officials aren't aware. And everybody I ask about regenerative soil, from school administrators to whoever I can ask about regenerative soil practice, they don't have a clue about it. And it seems like I like to get some support. It's based off the National Agronomy Manual of 2011. I don't know if there's an updated manual, but mainly the couple hundred pages is crop production, and kind of want to set in there that this density and diversity that used to be in our acreages. We got 1.2 million acres of tribal land, and seemed like it's probably the best forage in the country, as I was told, top 10% in the country. But when it comes to farming, which is in our treaty too, our 68 treaty, Article 8, and it seemed like if we can get back into this regenerative practices and educate people on it, because it does retain the water. My concern is the toxins that we're living in. Hearing a report coming out that rain coming down upon us have toxin in it. So then you think about the groundwater, where everything runs off into, and then you talk about the carbon sequestration. But if we tie this all together from home plate back to home plate, I don't even think we're on first base yet, but I like to see NRCS possibly bringing this out. And I forgot the gentleman's name. His name was Ray Arteta. He's retired now, but I was in contact with one individual, but she was from New Jersey. So I kind of like to see how we are here on the ground and what exactly would it take. Because you talk about, and then the other thing would be like the hemp production. And we're looking at it as a Veterans Committee of doing that whole process and looking at hempcrete structures, buildings, homes, and tying that in with the soil and the root system. Can you update me on it, any of that?
So first, thank you for the statement. First thing I'd like to address is the regenerative soil properties and the agency stance on this. So soil health is a priority for NRCS in South Dakota. And the gentleman that you were referring to, Ray Archuleta, was a huge advocate for the agency in getting that message out and providing educational resources. And this is something that we are definitely promoting across the state. And this is one of the big tasks that our Kent Vlieger has, as well as Tans Herman, as far as trying to provide some of those educational opportunities. But we're also working on getting our entire staff across the state trained up and trying to provide that education to our landowners. So this is something that we're that we've identified as a priority for South Dakota. So if there's anything along the lines of soil health that we can help the tribe with, as far as educational resources or even coming out to give presentations, we'd be happy to help however we can.
Yeah, I think it'd be real critical because, like I said, everybody I ask, they're not aware of it, and it seems like it's common sense. But I really applaud Ray for putting that out there. You know, when he's been all over the world, it sounds like. So he's been in these areas that are actually from soil to dirt to sand. You know, we don't want to go that route, so we want to stay healthy soil, healthy animals, healthy humans. And that's probably the most powerful message we can get to every elected official, from tribal to state to federal, to educate them on regenerative soil and start having demonstrations and acreages and start doing that data collection would be probably a mission that we could all push for. But if we have an audience that is unaware and they make decisions, so we got to strike there first. Thank you.
Absolutely. Something that would really help NRCS in getting that message out also is when we have partners that are willing to facilitate the meeting and invite us. Because as a federal agency, sometimes it's hard for us to pull elected officials to our meetings or our tours, but as partners and as tribes, you have a much greater chance to pull the folks together that need to hear the message. So if you put together a meeting, we can work on being there so that we can provide that educational opportunity.
Yeah, we kind of missed almost had try to do these practices, but we missed the planting season for a hemp and alongside the river. Hopefully we get that going this coming spring, and maybe that would be the test pilot to pull in and have meetings leading up to that. I sure would like to help try to set those meetings up and try to get all these tribal the right tribal persons there so we can get that information out to our councils.
As you're working on setting up any of these meetings, keep us in the loop on that, because we'd love to be there to be able to provide some of this education. Because again, for South Dakota, the soil health is a priority for South Dakota. So please keep us in the loop on that.
All right,
Bryce,
thank you.
Bryce, are you able to see my telephone number that I put in the chat? And I would encourage you to call me, we can talk further. My telephone number is 605-530-5045.
Got it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And Bryce, I didn't want to ignore the second part of your question regarding hemp production. This is going to be something that I'm going to have to do a little research on. I've been informed about hemp production and NRCS's involvement or USDA's involvement in it. I'm not up to speed on it at the moment, so I'm going to have to do a little research and follow up with you on where NRCS is with hemp production.
We were at have a tribal member who was ahead of the game, but we were up at a 2019 North Dakota Hemp Summit, and it's kind of like I think Sisseton's got appeals going, and we almost got off the ground this year. Hopefully we do next year, but North Dakota sure wants to join, have us join together. So I think it's a great opportunity to, as a Veterans Committee, we wanted to get a hempcrete project going, which is the fiber. But what I learned is that you got to keep the fiber away from the males, away from the females, like a 10-mile buffer, stuff like that we don't know until we get in with the guys that are doing it, and hopefully we get all that together. But I sure like to push that too, since it's in the Farm Bill, and I think North Dakota is the spearhead. And there's a couple individuals there that we could probably contact to help us set up some big summit here in South Dakota, involving a couple of the universities up there. Canada too. We got a contact in Canada, and they've been doing it since '93, but they moved to hemp food. And they come down to the lower 48. I think they're into Minneapolis now, so we have a contact there too. So maybe if we can get a big meeting together, or even a Zoom meeting, we could share some information on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I'd like to make another comment on hemp. I think it's going to be our buffalo. The energy, the shelter, the clothing, the food, the medicine that it can provide. It's kind of a miracle plan for our time now. I'd just like to share that.
So I can give a little bit of our perspective from our program assistance with hemp production. And USDA just needs to, we can work with producers producing hemp as long as they are enrolled into the program. There was a rule that was effective March 22nd of 21, and we can, you have to register as a hemp producer that way to be eligible for financial assistance with NRCS on any land that's growing that, because we cannot provide assistance to anybody that would be in controlled substance production. And hopefully that helps as well.
What about some of the lands that, like, some of them are 100% tribal, some are tribal with some latis on it.
It doesn't necessarily matter the land ownerships. It matters just on whether what's being produced on there. So as a federal agency, we can't provide assistance to anything that is considered a controlled substance. But as long as you are registering with, I believe it's with Farm Service Agency, that you are an authorized hemp producer, then we are able to still provide assistance.
Yeah, and then like what we were almost at the verge of is like when that field right now is being corn and being sprayed. So with the hemp, it actually is good for the soil. And if you get, let's say, some alfalfa and winter, some western wheat, and maybe another grass in there for the diversity, and then run some buffalo or cows in there, and let's say rotate 800 acres, 400 acres, plant it, and then no-till. But it'd take 3 years to get the toxins out of there, the pesticides, the chemicals in there, openly. So on that 3rd year, you could actually be organic. But then again, what does that take, So the risk and all that, it's just like any other crop, I guess. But
yeah,
sounds like it's very good for the soil, and that diversity would actually bring a rotation there, so that whole the animals and everything would be beneficial too. I think there's a report out on the livestock also. I didn't get to read it, but I know that one presentation on a horse owner up there in North Dakota, I don't know if they're race horses, but they were talking, instead of injecting those kind of like those steroids for their joints, they were using, they couldn't say feed, they had to say supplement. So they supplement it, and it's actually good for the horse's joints. So it really actually is medicine. So I didn't know that at the time, that it actually helped horses out too. So it sounds like it's beneficial all the way around. But I guess we have to break that dirt and start collecting data. I didn't mean break the dirt. I meant no till, but get it going to see if it takes 3 years to get that soil detoxified and actually you saying it can be organic, then that whatever you use it for, but feed supplement would sure be a plus, especially for the producers, which many are probably not aware of. But it'd be good to have a South Dakota hemp summit so we can all listen to the ones that are doing it. And I think that was very beneficial, the 2019 North Dakota Hemp Summit. I still got the contacts of some of those individuals. So if we could maybe contact them and we could set up a meeting, that would be good. Because they're all about legislation. So if we see barriers, then the legislators should be able to amend law to make it more streamlined. Because I know they were talking about insurance at that time 3 years ago, and the banks would insure the crop, you know. So, you know, that competitiveness between the corn and soy and wheat growers, that's what stopped it in South Dakota way back in 2000. So I'm hoping that the doors are all open now. And if there's barriers in legislation, that we could probably try to streamline that with amendments. Thank you.
Bryce, do you know who organized that meeting in North Dakota?
Yeah, I can send you my notes. I got all the names and I got a report, numbers and stuff on it.
That'd be interesting because that we might be able to use a similar group in South Dakota to try to see if we can't help a group put together a summit.
Bryce, you can email those to my email that I put in the chat, daryl.duval@usda.gov, or contact your local office there, or Dave Paciska, and we can move from there.
Okay, sounds excellent.
And
I think we need to catch up to North Dakota.
I did put a link to the agriculture marketing service website on hemp production. And that is where you're going to find more information on how to register as a licensed producer for hemp.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
This is Lauren up in Sisseton, and I'm not going to say I'm a hemp expert by any means, but the tribe here has been doing a little bit of work with University of Minnesota. But when you're talking about the regenerative ag and hemp, they really, it's kind of looking to me like they don't go quite as good together as what we would like, because if you're doing hemp for fiber, you're taking everything off of the ground. So if we're talking regenerative ag, we want to have something growing. You're going to have that product ready laying on the ground for about a month. So by the time you could get a cover crop back into there, it's going to be kind of late. So just something to kind of keep in mind when you're looking at that it's hemp is good, I think, for cleaning up the ground from what I have been doing some reading on, but from the regenerative ag, there's going to have to be a little bit more, I think, study done before we can say that it's really great for regenerative ag. Trying to get that, like I said, cover crop and so forth into there might be a little bit tough. Just a thought.
Thank you. Are there others, partners on that want to share a thought with us, BIA or others that are online?
Just one comment. On the contact from North Dakota with hemp food. He's an agronomist, and his name is Daryl McElroy, and we were hopefully would have got off the ground, but we didn't. so that we could start that data. And what I mentioned is what we're looking at, and maybe using the buffalo, but again, maybe livestock, just to see how that would go with the female plant. And the fiber, like I was talking, it has to, that's the part that they're customizing equipment. I was talking with Don Deere, and they were talking about that too, about looking at customizing some of their equipment, because they were having problems in North Dakota too, like even with the balers, you know, catching on fire because of that, how tough that fiber is. But I think the female and the male is has to be understood, and that bumper 10 miles, because if you get that into the females, it would change the females, and you don't want that. That's why there's a bumper. So a lot of that information is probably unknown to a lot of people, but hopefully we can get a good summit here in South Dakota with the 9 tribes and all kind of start looking at what's the potential here. Sure would like to make some hempcrete homes for you know, that's a plus that we're looking at with the Veterans Committee. But you know, just getting one going and getting it done would be what we need to do, so we can start looking at the data on it and the ground.
Thank you, Bryce. I really look forward to our phone call. I want to connect with you and see how we can partner up on our soil health and grassland health practices and education. Thank you. With that, I believe we've come to the end of our agenda, and if there's no other questions or comments from our partners, we currently do not have the next date of our next Tribal Conservation Advisory Council meeting set yet. If you have suggestions, please email those to me, suggestions for a date or how often we should be meeting. Last few meetings, we've met every 3 months. If you have thoughts on whether that should be more often or less often or specific days, we'd sure appreciate it. Tony, any closing comment?
I just want to say thank you to everybody who's participated in the meeting today. I know everybody's busy, and these meetings are really important, just not only to exchange information and say what NRCS is working on, but also just hearing from you and hearing the different ideas that are coming up from across the state to find ways that we can find more innovative ways to get conservation on the ground across South Dakota. So just thank you so much for participating, and I'm really looking forward to our next meeting. And at any point, if you guys have questions for me or Daryl or anybody else, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're always looking for ideas and different ways of doing things if needed. So just thank you, and I hope everybody has a great rest of your week.
Thank you.